Hey guys, welcome back. My name's McB. Last week we talked about dissociation, and this week we're going to talk about mania and manic-like symptoms and other disorders besides bipolar disorder. I've heard people say that mental illnesses can have mania or manic episodes outside of bipolar disorder, and that's not entirely correct, save for a few examples. Because that can cause confusion, I want to help clear it up by talking about what mania is, what mental illnesses have manic-like symptoms but not actual mania, and the few cases that you can have mania. However, there are mental illnesses with similar symptoms to mania without actually having manic episodes. So I'm going to talk about a few of those too and maybe help you differentiate between mania, mania-like symptoms in bipolar disorder, and other mental illnesses. While mania can be experienced by itself outside of bipolar disorder or outside of any disorder, there are only a few mental illnesses that actually experience manic episodes, and that's related to a mood disorder, and I'll mention those too. Mania can also be experienced outside of mental health with medical conditions, things like postpartum psychosis, dementia, high stress, as well as things more in the mental health range like trauma, abuse, alcohol or drug use, or alcohol or drug abuse. I've talked about it before in my video on bipolar disorder, but I'm just going to go ahead and go over it again so we have somewhere to get started, and then we'll go into manic-like symptoms and other disorders. So what is mania? Well, mania is a mental illness where you have periods of time where you're overly excited, hyperactive, having feelings of great excitement or euphoria, delusional thinking, and overactivity in the brain. A manic episode is typically characterized by a sustained period of abnormally elevated or irritable mood, intense and high energy, racing thoughts, during which delusions or hallucinations or psychosis can be experienced, indicating a break from reality. Psychosis and mania often go together, but it's the mania causing psychosis rather than the psychosis causing mania, if that makes sense. An episode typically lasts a week or longer for mania and a few days for hypomania, but it can go on for months in the case of mania. Mania is most commonly known in bipolar episodes, but again, it can occur outside of that with just mania, usually related to substance abuse, but also because of other things. And there are many causes for extreme changes in mood and behavior. Hypomania, which is what occurs during type 2 bipolar disorder, is basically all the same manic symptoms, but to a lesser degree for a shorter time and of a lesser intensity. Now, symptoms of mania and the way they present is not clear-cut. It's really looking at the difference between your normal behavior and your behavior during a manic episode. The symptoms usually include a decreased need for sleep. Now, this can look like not sleeping for days, but this can also look like not getting tired until late and waking up early and feeling fine. The point is that you need less sleep than you normally would. Another symptom is having a lot of energy, way more than usual, and finding ways to work it off, which again can present in many different ways. It can look like starting a bunch of new projects, it can look like starting a new business, it can look like being more physically active, it can look like traveling suddenly, or just being more productive than usual. Some people clean a lot, some people do all their homework, some people start a completely useless project. It really just depends. Talking loudly, quickly, and rapidly is another symptom, as well as pressured speech, but it's more so than someone's normal. You're talking louder, faster, and more rapidly than usual. And pressured speech is the feeling of needing to talk more. So some people just talk a lot and they keep going, some people interrupt people more than usual, it really just depends. Another symptom is getting easily distracted, more so than usual, and having trouble staying on track. It's really easy to go off onto a tangent or thought process and completely get off track, or have a flight of ideas in your head. Basically, your thought process makes sense to you, but it doesn't make logical sense to anyone else, unless someone also happens to be having a manic episode. Another symptom is hypersexuality, or having an increased desire for sex. It's pretty common, and it can look like anything from just having a higher sex drive or a higher libido to having risky sex with risky people, or seeking sex in a way or with people you normally wouldn't seek it out with. There's a lot of impulsivity with mania, so someone experiencing mania may gamble more often, or completely gamble away all their money, or they will engage in risky behaviors like substance abuse or drug use and alcohol use, or overspending, or driving really quickly, or speeding a lot, or engaging in criminal behavior. Like, it really just depends on the person. I personally don't really I overspend, but I personally don't gamble or use drugs. I mean, in the past I've drank more during manic episodes. I know that I drink more during manic episodes and I want to do stuff like that more often, but For me personally, I don't always do that. I do drive way more quickly, and I speed a lot, and I have a lot of road rage when I'm having a manic episode. Thoughts of grandiosity also are a symptom, and thoughts of grandiosity are basically thinking that you're more important or better than other people, or you're of a higher value than other people, and that could look like a lot of things. That could look like thinking you're a politically important figure all of a sudden, that, you know, like thinking you're the president of a small country all of a sudden, and that they're going to welcome you, so you need to go visit. Or that a celebrity is in love with you, or that everyone loves you and has a crush on you because you're the hottest person alive, or you get a god complex. It really depends. Some people just have an overinflated sense of confidence during manic episodes. It's basically an exaggerated sense of importance, and it can come in all shapes and forms depending on the context and the person. But with that higher sense of confidence could be something as small as dressing in brighter colors or dressing up more. With that comes delusional thinking and somewhat of a break from reality, so you start to think things that are not true, but to you they are true. This could be thinking that you're a politically important figure. This could also be someone is following you suddenly, or that the people close to you are plotting against you. This could be thinking that you suddenly have cancer, or that you have every illness you can think of. Anytime something starts to hurt a little bit, you've convinced yourself you have a serious illness and you're going to die. And that kind of goes along with paranoia, which is another common symptom in mania. Another symptom is increased hostility and agitation or irritability. It can look like being annoyed by every little thing. It can look like starting fights with people or arguments when you normally wouldn't. It could be getting way more aggressive than usual, or getting really angry and confrontational, especially for like the majority of the episode. Like, that's really common for people. Like, I know I personally get really irritated by everything. Like, we could have run out of something in the fridge and I'll be really mad about it and like slam a drawer. Or, you know, you ran out of clean forks. Not that that's a personal example that's, you know, happened in real life, but, you know, just because. The last common symptom is thoughts of suicide or suicidal attempts. It's pretty common, whether that's because you have the energy to do it, it's an impulsive decision, you want it all to end because you're sick of being in an episode, or you're delusional and think that you can't die, or that you're invincible, or something like that. Now that's the clinical definition and symptoms of mania. I gave you some examples to kind of show you how it can present, because I know what kept me from getting a bipolar diagnosis for a very long time was that I didn't think I had mania. Like, I didn't do extreme things like I heard people doing that had bipolar disorder, but that's just because it presents differently for everyone, and I wasn't expecting that. And so I want you guys to know that it can present in a way you're not expecting. So just keep that in mind, that it's different for everyone. It's not going to look the same for everyone. So what causes mania outside of mental illness besides bipolar disorder? Well, medically, there are several things that can cause mania to occur. That could be postpartum psychosis, brain injuries and tumors, dementia, high stress, brain inflammation, lupus, medications, drug and alcohol use, sleep deprivation, a stroke, and trauma and abuse. Those are all things that can cause mania. In these cases, if the medical condition is resolved, then the mania can be resolved. However, there's no cure for mania unless you can resolve what's causing it. For bipolar disorder, you take medications to help prevent your body from going into a manic episode, to regulate your brain chemicals, usually in the form of antipsychotics or mood stabilizers. In addition, to manage mania, you need to change your lifestyle and live a healthy lifestyle and make sure you sleep enough. And I've done a video over this too, on how to get quote-unquote stable in bipolar disorder and how to manage your mania and your lifestyle to prevent those episodes from happening. So lifestyle change is really important in managing mania, and therapy also really helps. It's important to learn to cope with mania when it does happen, and to be vigilant for manic episodes and look out for them, because you can prevent it from getting worse if you're aware of it and it starts, and you can start pulling out all your coping mechanisms to help prevent it from getting worse. The only other mental illness, and I want to clarify, when I say bipolar disorder, I mean all mood disorders. That includes cyclothymia and unspecified bipolar disorder. Besides bipolar disorder and mania itself, that experiences manic episodes is schizoaffective disorder. It's on the spectrum for schizophrenia. Schizoaffective disorder has mania because it has a bipolar type of schizoaffective disorder that has episodes of mania, specifically jumps in energy levels and happiness delusions and hallucinations. So that's the only one that clinically has clear-cut episodes of mania. But plenty of other disorders seem like they have mania. I'm going to talk about this more, but before I get into this, you can experience mania and have these disorders, but the mania is outside of these disorders. You're either experiencing mental illness and also experiencing mania, or you're experiencing a mental illness with an underlying case of bipolar disorder. And I think that people probably go undiagnosed and for that reason think that they have mania in those disorders, but that's not the case. So let's look at disorders that have similar symptoms of mania. I won't go into every single disorder, but I've looked into the most commonly thought to have mania, so we'll go into those. Regarding personality disorders, there's a large presence of impulsivity and risky behavior for borderline personality disorder, which often occurs in mania, risky and impulsive behaviors, as well as substance abuse or thoughts of suicide, which often occurs in mania and is one of the main symptoms, as well as substance use and abuse. That's pretty common for those personality disorders as well as in mania. Mania also has paranoid or psychotic features, which is pretty common in borderline personality disorder too. So it can look behaviorally a lot like bipolar disorder.
I also forgot to mention that hallucinations can occur in borderline personality disorder as well, which is also pretty common in mania.
Now, if you've seen my videos on borderline personality disorder and bipolar disorder and how they're different and similar, you'd know that they often get misdiagnosed because they're very similar in a lot of ways, but the key difference is what causes them and the length of episodes and the types of episodes. But I did a whole other video on that if you want to check it out. Now, in ADHD, there's a large presence of having trouble focusing or concentrating on tasks, being easily distracted, being restless, having pressured speech causing you to interrupt others, and having the flight of ideas and being easily distracted. So a lot of those symptoms are in mania, and so they can seem really similar. So that overlap can be pretty confusing because you could think that you're experiencing mania because the symptoms are so similar. I'm sure there's a lot more in ADHD that seems like bipolar disorder because I know that you can experience depression, but I don't know a whole lot about ADHD and I don't have it personally, but I know that the symptoms can look a lot like mania just by looking at them clinically. Regarding anxiety, with generalized anxiety disorder, there are symptoms of having a difficulty concentrating or feeling on edge and restless, sometimes talking way more because of social anxiety. So not as many similarities as borderline personality disorder or ADHD with bipolar disorder, but as someone with both anxiety and bipolar disorder, I know personally I've had a hard time distinguishing between mania and anxiety because the feeling of, it's a little different because anxiety is more panic for me and mania is more just high energy for me, but they can feel very similar, so it can be hard to distinguish between the two. Now, with psychotic disorders, the reason that they're so similar to mania is because mania has a large presence of delusions and hallucinations and psychosis, so any psychotic disorder can have a lot of similarities enough to think that you may be having a manic episode. Spectrum of schizophrenia and the different subtypes, there are many symptoms that are similar to mania regarding delusions, hallucinations, paranoia, especially schizoaffective disorder, which we've already discussed, has manic episodes and is the only other disorder besides mania itself and bipolar disorder that has manic episodes outside of medical conditions. And this is partially why schizophrenia and bipolar disorder are also often misdiagnosed with each other because of the presence of psychosis, delusions, hallucinations, and paranoia. There's even psychotic depression, which again for the same reasons can have some similar symptoms to mania or a mixed bipolar episode. There's plenty of other disorders that have similar symptoms. I'm not going to go into them all. I just wanted to get the main few that people often say have mania but actually don't. Many symptoms in mental illnesses overlap, and so it causes a lot of confusion. Misdiagnosis is not all that uncommon, unfortunately, for that reason. So it's important to be careful about what you think are causing your symptoms, and that's why it's important to go to a professional to get a professional to tell you what is causing the symptoms and what they actually are, because they can get so jumbled and misidentified. Now, despite all of these similarities, none of these disorders have manic episodes. If you believe that you're experiencing mania or having a manic episode with one of those mental illnesses that isn't bipolar disorder or schizoaffective disorder with the bipolar type, you're probably experiencing comorbidity, which is having two or more mental illnesses. If you're experiencing mania but you have anxiety, it's entirely possible that you're also experiencing mania itself or have an underlying case of bipolar disorder, and I would say that often goes undiagnosed. So that means you would be having a separate diagnosis. In fact, it's more likely that you do, because it's not unlikely to have more than one mental illness, especially because of genetics and trauma being such a common factor for causing mental illness. So I hope that that helped you kind of clear things up with mania. That's what I've got for you guys today. I hope that was helpful. Let me know what really helped clear things up for you and if that made any sense. I know it was a lot and that can kind of get confusing. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for a video topic, feel free to comment them. If you want to contact me or follow me on Instagram or Twitter, my handles are in the description below. And if you want more content, you can go find me on TikTok because I post a lot more on there. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video, and I hope you have a great week.